Welcome back to Spreading the Good Stuff. I'm Christy O'Brien. For the month of October, we're proud to be hosting this special four-part series of episodes as part of the 2020 New South Wales Small Business Month Festival in partnership with the New South Wales Government and Murray River Council. Before we get started with today's conversation, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and chat today and pay our respects to their elders past, present and future. We'd like to extend that respect to Aboriginal peoples listening in today. So today we're chatting with two small businesses based in the Murray River Council and chat with them about how they've had to adapt very quickly and respond to the impacts of COVID-19, which for many was pretty much overnight for most businesses. So first of all, we're chatting with Zoe Crump from the Art of Zoe Photography based in Mathara. Welcome, Zoe.
Hi, Christy. How you going?
Good. Thank you again for joining us today. We might just get straight into it and talk about your business, perhaps a little bit of history, when you started, what you do, and what that looks like for you on a normal daily or weekly basis.
No worries. So I'm a photographer and I think I shot my first wedding about 10 years ago. So most weekends in February, March, April, October and November usually booked up every weekend with weddings. But at the start of this year in March, I had a wedding for the first time for the start of March, and then there was talk of restrictions coming in and, you know, things happening, and we were all like, oh yeah, it won't happen to us because, you know, we're safe in the country. And then I had a wedding booked the following weekend and the restrictions started going down to like 50 people, then 20 people. So it pretty much just got postponed. And then the phone just started ringing of, oh, postponing our wedding. And it just went on and on and on. And I think I'm up to now, some weddings have been postponed like 4 times. So, yeah, it was a bit, you know, business just stopped. Really.
How many
the phone
weddings
was ringing, but for the wrong reason.
How many weddings did you have booked and how many did you lose essentially overnight, roughly?
I actually haven't counted, but it'd probably be at least 10 or more.
Yep.
Up until so I had actually 2 weddings on the weekend just gone. So they were just very small family dinners as such with like 20 people. So.
And they were your first 2 back since March?
Yes, since March, since I think it was the 8th of March.
Wow, so, that would have been pretty special for everyone involved.
Yeah, so it was pretty exciting. My first wedding back was 140 k's north of Hay. So
I think I saw the pictures. That looked amazing. Beautiful outback kind of setting.
Yeah. So
how wonderful, just
nice and isolated.
Yeah, well, you would have felt quite safe, I imagine.
Yeah.
And no face masks involved out there?
No, nothing out there. Just a few flies, pretty much. So I also do take a lot of preschool photos as well. So obviously they all got postponed. And then because I live in New South Wales, I had some that I do in like Rochester and Leachville, but I couldn't do them obviously because of the border restrictions. So they stopped as well, and family photos stopped. And so I kind of not one to sit around and do nothing. So I saw online a friend that I follow from Gippsland, she started up taking photos at people's front gates. And I was like, oh, yeah, that could be something to do. So I just messaged her and I asked her a few questions about what she was doing. She said, oh, I just saw it in America. People were going to people's front door, taking a photo from a safe distance and then moving on. I'm like, oh, I'll just pop that online and see if anybody's interested. So I just put a post on my Facebook page and asked, you know, is anybody interested in having their photo taken? And people started messaging me. So then I had to sort of section it into towns because, you know, I'd say, oh, I'm available this day. And then all these messages started coming and I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I can make it around all those people. So
because it kind of went nuts, didn't it, for you? Like when you first put it out there, Zoe, it went really nuts, didn't it?
Yeah, sort of like people were at home, they had nothing to do. You know, often people postpone family photos all the time because they're like, oh, my husband's working or the kids are playing sport or, you know, there's always a variety of reasons that they can't do them. Yeah. So, like in Denny, I just said, you know, I'd be in East Denny between 3 and 4 and just sort of sectioned off times. But at the start, I had to find out like where all these addresses were and I had to map it all out by hand and I was like, oh my God, this is too hard. And then I found an app that a delivery driver uses. So you just pop all the addresses in and it just lists them in order. So that was easy in the end.
We'll have to mention that app in the show notes for people who ever want to, you know, tackle something similar. Yeah. What was it called?
So it was called Road Warrior.
That's awesome. So obviously thinking on your feet and adapting pretty quickly, like how much did that help fill the gap? I know that, you know, as you said, people were at home and this was in first lockdown when obviously you could still get over the border. So you were obviously covering Kit and New South.
None of those issues sort of were in place at that time. Like it was no dramas that we could go over the border or nothing was a problem there. And I actually rang the police and said, you know, am I allowed to go to people's houses? I'm not going into their house. I literally stand pretty much. Sometimes I was on the nature strip and I'd just toot my horn. They'd be ready standing at the gate. I'd wave to them, take their picture and drive off. So, yeah, the police said, that's fine. You're working because one of the reasons were that you had to leave home for work, so that wasn't an issue. And so people then had the option to purchase a print or the high res file.
Yes.
So that was all, you know, delivered online and stuff. So,
and I know that you charged a minimal fee, you know, for that, but how far did this concept, the front door concept, go to kind of replacing income you may have lost from weddings, or was it just to kind of keep you busy doing your craft?
Initially it was just to keep me busy, but it did generate revenue as well. So like it was fine and it was very handy really, but because there was nothing else happening.
And so when you said all your weddings were cancelled, well, postponed, like were you kind of comforted that, you know, weddings would come back? Like did you always feel like, okay, I'll have
I had one wedding that was supposed to be in March and she postponed to September, and I kind of thought, oh, maybe that's a little bit early, but you know, it should be fine by then. But so they could have went ahead, but they actually lived in Victoria and they were getting married in New South Wales. So that's where the issues came across then. And, you know, I had on Saturday, the bride's, her two best friends lived in Bendigo, so they couldn't come to New South Wales, and her brother lived in Brisbane. So
very tricky.
There was those, so they pretty much had like 4 cameras set up in the church and it all was live streamed. So I think they said there was 137 people from around the world watching their wedding. So that was pretty special. And all the groom's family were from England, so none of his family could be there.
And being very involved in the wedding industry, like how long do you think it might take, or like, do you see weddings, you know, going back to some sort of normal in the next 6 months, or do you think it's going to take a long time?
I think they will be, but I think a lot of people, there will be a change in the size of weddings. Like people are now just saying, oh, we might just have our immediate family and have very small intimate dinners.
Yes.
And a lot of people are saying, oh, you know, but I might have a big party next year, but I really don't think that will happen, because I think people's lives move on.
Yes.
You know, that's happened. They've been married and they've moved on to something else, in their life, rather than, it's almost like funerals. Like, I don't think people are then going to have another big, another wake in 12 months' time or.
Yes. Yeah. Can I ask, Zoe, just you talked about the app that you use to kind of, find all the addresses and obviously you use social media to sort of get the word out there. What other tools or like what else did you use to actually sort of put this into action?
I pretty much just put a post on my Facebook page, had my pen and paper out, and people would message me, and I just had, you had to have your details of this is your address, what section, I had sections of towns in just, groups. Please write what section, your name, your phone number, and your address. And then I literally just wrote all those down. And once I got to like a limit that I thought was achievable in that hour, I would just say, sorry, that's it for that day. I can't fit any more in. And then I would type those addresses into the app and it would sort them in order. So
oh wow, that
was very handy. I really don't think I would have been able to do the amount that I did if I didn't have that app, because it was so time consuming of looking on Google Maps trying to work out where people's houses.
Imagine. And was it actually like, did it fill up a lot of your time? Like, I mean, you've obviously got a little one in tow. Like, was it hard to kind of
6-month-old baby? So Wally actually came with me. I think out of 680 families that I visited,
wow,
I reckon he came to 630 of them. So
that's incredible.
He was very good. So
that's such
Billy,
a huge number.
Yeah, my 2-year-old, he actually stayed home most of the time because he learned to take his seatbelt off and get out of the car each place I pulled up. So that was a bit tricky.
Not super handy. And obviously the word really spread. And I know I saw some articles in the Weekly Times. Were you on the front of the Weekly Times? Or?
No, so there was the Land newspaper.
Yes.
The Outback magazine.
Yep.
The Kahuna, the Barron Bridge newspaper.
Yep.
The Grazier magazine. And then just the local papers like the Riv and the Pastoral Times.
And did you put it out there to all those publications, or did they find you because of the I suppose the online presence that you had and people sharing their images?
So a few people, so like the local papers just contacted me, and then the Land and the Grazier magazine and the Outback magazine, I kind of just sent them an inbox on Instagram and said, this is a rural project, because there was a lot of farms that I did cover.
Yes. And I really love the way that you shifted from like families and farms to then the older people. Did you want to talk a bit about that?
So when I was driving to Hay, I'd visited a few farms that had older kind of families at them, and I was like, oh, there's lots of newborn photographers and people that specialize in kids, but there's nobody out there that really specializes in the older generation, and they've got so much character, and I could photograph old people all day. Like they're
that's wonderful.
Have a chat with them. So when I left a few farms, I was kind of driving out there in the middle of nowhere and thinking, I might just put it out there that, because they did say, they're going to leave the farm and other family members will take over, but you sort of lose that, what they got up to on the farm. So, when I pulled up at one farm, the grandpa's walking in with his hat full of mushrooms that he'd been out to pick, and, and
great.
They had little things around the farm that they talked about. We built this shed in 1960 something, and so that kind of stopped a little bit when the second restrictions came in. I sort of was a bit hesitant then of going into older people's houses.
Yep.
For obvious reasons. I didn't want to be the one that if I had something. So I think once things settle down again, I will promote that again.
That's great. And because it's kind of an unexpected kind of trip, like down that memory lane for the older people. That wasn't something that you went looking for. It just sort of happened.
Not at all. I just sort of thought,
that's great.
We'll see what happens here.
And as you said, it's probably an area that's pretty untapped, like it's something that and
there's a lot of photographers that I know specialize in kids and maternity, but nothing at sort of at the other end of life.
And do you think that COVID has certainly helped you look at other avenues, or as you said, it was a bit of a happy accident that happened, but I think when businesses go through these sorts of challenges, they do look at how else they can adapt, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. I sort of was like, oh, well, lots of people were like, oh, well, that's it. You can't shoot weddings. And I'm like, oh, well, there's always something else that you can do. So just so happened that I didn't think that the project would be that popular. So
yeah,
it kind
well
of
done.
Someone explained it to me. They're kind of like, well, once one person had a picture taken, it was sort of became a thing. Oh, well, they're having that done, so
Yeah.
I'll get
contagious.
one done too. Yeah, almost like, yeah. So no,
and I also
fun.
think too, it was a great opportunity for so many families who had wanted to get around to doing that family photo and never got around to it, but actually had the time to just think about it and coordinate it, as you said.
And a lot of people I went to, they had kids that were 8 or 9 and said, this is the first family photo we've ever had. So
yeah, wow. So Zoe, based on your experience during COVID and adapting really quickly, obviously thinking on your feet and pivoting when you sort of had to find something to do, both I suppose for your work, but also just to keep busy, as you were saying, it was such uncertain times. Do you have any advice or tips to sort of businesses to about how to cope in a situation like this?
It's so difficult because it was so unknown to other people and to everyone, really, because not often you're just told overnight, that's it, your business is shut down. I think talk to other people and, look, obviously around the world of what's happening with other people, and social media is a great way to communicate with people and find new ideas. So I think, it was really tricky because it was super unknown to everyone. So everybody was in the same boat. But, all other businesses seem to have adapted to, you could buy bread and milk at the drive-through bottle-o and
yes, true, very true.
meals. And so I think everybody just worked together and helped each other.
And even just having that, as you said, like just looking outside at what other people are doing and having that bravery to sort of, get on the phone and touch base with someone doing something that you think might work, because I think there is that sort of, we're all in this together. And I know it sounds cliche, but I think that if you do look outside and like look to see what other people are doing and getting, advice and tips from other people, just as as simple as just finding that roadmap kind of app, because there are lots of little things like, and you're adapting to what you did. Obviously logistically it was really challenging for you, so just finding those...
Nobody ever would have thought the logistics of it would have been the biggest issue.
Yeah, so good on you. And look, what about the future? Have you got a few weddings coming up other than the 2 you just had? Like, how's the schedule looking in the next 6 months?
Yeah, so I've got another 2 this weekend.
Great.
And then we're just assessing sort of what's happening with the other one, because they're quite large weddings. Yes. So, and, obviously Victorian weddings are still
unknown.
Unknown at the moment. Hopefully so it's lucky that we live this side of the border at the moment.
Yeah, and a fair bit of your work, I mean, you're based in Murray River Council at Mathara, but a fair bit of your work is mainly north of the border, would you say, Zoe?
It varies at times. Like sometimes all of my weddings for one season would be in Echuca.
Yes.
But yeah, it just happened to be lucky this time that I did have quite a few weddings north. So
yeah, that
was very, very handy.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with us today, and well done on, pivoting your business so quickly and doing something that was, truly amazing for all the people that you shared your skill with and took photos of families, because I know that they will enjoy those photos forever.
Yeah, and it's something that I think families will look back on and go, oh, remember, we were locked up and
definitely, yeah.
We had a picture.
Well done. Well, thank you again, and good luck with the rest of the wedding season. Hopefully it'll be a busy one. And
hopefully.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll chat again soon. Thanks so much, Zoe. In this second part of today's episode, we're going to be chatting to Julianne Daly from the Border Inn in Moama, who is owner, family member, boss lady at the Border Inn. Welcome, Jules.
Hi, Christy. How are you?
Good, thank you for chatting to us today. Before we get started and talk about how the Border Inn has kind of coped, I suppose, with the challenges of COVID-19, we might just get you to talk about the business and how long you've been involved, and just about, you know, the Border Inn as an institution, essentially, in Moama.
Okay, so my parents moved to Echuca, Moama 32 years ago, and for the past 30 years we've been at the Border Inn. So in that time, I first started working at the border when I was 22, 23. So I always make the joke that I've watched everyone in Moama grow up. Some people not grow up, but they still become grandparents. Yeah, so there's not really very much we've missed happening in Moama over the last 30 years, but it's good and we love it, and it's still our family business.
And I know for so many, Jules, too, sorry to interrupt, but, you know, like for that kind of, you know, coming of age period, like I know for myself as an 18-year-old, I came into Moama from a farm out at Cornwall and learnt to pour a beer at the Border Inn with your darling dad and JB, your uncle. And, you know, for me, that sort of started a career in hospitality that, you know, paid for overseas trips, and just sort of, you know, it gave me the ability to just, you know, talk to people and, you know, and learn skills that I've sort of still got today. So I know that the Border Inn holds that, you know, that really special place for a lot of people. So I just wanted to say that. So very special place in my heart, and I know for a lot of people in the area as well.
Yeah, which is what most your local pubs in most little towns are. And of course, we've watched Moama turn from a little town into quite a big, busy town, and getting busier all the time. There's a lot of like, it's a terrific town, especially with the new bridge coming over. I think that it will be even more exciting for everyone when they stop queuing on our bridge, when the closure has been bad enough. It was busy enough before that, but there's lots of exciting things happening in Moama as well. I think the councils have done a fantastic job, and it's a great place to live. So, and you're right, we've employed a lot of people over the years. There's not very many times you go out somewhere where someone doesn't go. They either have worked there and I've forgotten because they weren't there for very long, or even their parents under John Murphy have gone, I used to work at the Border Inn even before our time. So yeah, it's good. And we've still got our local kids working there. So,
which is fabulous. Yeah. So Julianne, tell us what happens when the pub, when it stops overnight.
For me, you mean?
Yeah, well, for everyone, for the business, like when COVID hit, like, you know, so many businesses, things changed overnight, essentially.
Yeah, which it did. And it was a little bit too quick. So I think everyone was in shock. And that first week when Scott Morrison announced that this was going to affect our country and we got limited, so we had to take some stools out, and it was coming, and everyone started to say that, you know, we were going to shut down. Then that Monday morning came when we had to pack up the pub, and it was such a strange feeling. And I can remember having that feeling and feeling sorry for people that maybe have lost their farms or have lost their businesses through other ways, that it would be so devastating. And the only thing that kind of kept us okay was the fact that everyone was doing it at the same time. But it was probably for the first time that feeling that we weren't really sure what we were going to do or how this was going to end. Yeah, it was a really strange time, upsetting for a lot of people. When you're in the hotel too, a lot of people come to the pub because they like to see people. And all of a sudden that gets taken away from them. So all of a sudden, also they were stuck at home, like no one was allowed to go anywhere. It was a worry. I was concerned about our staff. I didn't know what was going to happen to a lot of them. We didn't know whether it was going to be for 2 months or whether at the time they said September. So we just crossed our fingers and thought, can we get through 2 months of not operating? So that's when that first week we traded and we decided to do takeaway because we were lucky enough to be able to keep the bottle shop open.
So you did that straight away, pretty much?
Because we could keep the bottle shop open. So we thought, well, that's important because at least we can keep a little bit of something ticking over. And I suppose we had 2 temporary visa chefs at the time that if they couldn't get Centrelink, job keeper, job seeker, so we kind of didn't have much choice. We thought, we'll just see if we can do enough food to keep these guys that don't have any income employed.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, the first 2 weeks was a disaster because we were going backwards. Like, you don't make a lot of money out of food, and that wasn't good at all. And then Scott Morrison announced that we could have the JobKeeper, and that gave everyone a little bit of hope. So, lost a lot of money that first 2 weeks, and then once the JobKeeper decision came in and we thought, well, we will go with that, that made it a little bit easier. So that was the job. That was our 2 months of shutdown.
Yep.
Turned off everything, turned off every air conditioner. Thank goodness it wasn't cold. We didn't need the heaters on because our staff were turning up to answer the phones. And it was cold and there was nothing going on, and that's all they were doing was running the food out to the bottle shop for people. But the locals gave us amazing support. Like, it was really good. I think people at the time were excited just to be able to actually go for a drive in their car and pick up their takeaway food.
Definitely, yeah. And just from that welfare point of view, I know that, in the second lockdown particularly, there's been a lot of talk about, people's well-being. And, we were talking before we started recording about, it might be tough here at times waiting on the bridge or, having challenges, but, people living in Melbourne still today, in lockdown and can't go more than 5Ks from their home, and they can't leave for more than 2 hours. So like the challenges of that, but just the well-being. And one of the first people that I thought of when the pubs were shut were the regulars, Jules, like the people that go to the pub every day and it's part of their life, and they might just have a couple of, ponies of, whatever it is they drink, or 7 ounce, and then they go home again. Like, what did they do during this time? And like, that must have been terrible thinking about.
That was someone like my dad who at 2 o'clock every day would hop in his car and he would drive down or scooter down to the pub at 2 o'clock. He would have 4 beers, just see what was going on, which my mum loved that as well, because that was her 2 hours where she was home alone and be able to do whatever she wanted. That was his break. There's a lot of people like that. It's just what they do, just to catch up on what's happening in town, or if there's anything going on. So all of a sudden, and mum and dad are probably a really good example of just sitting there and nowhere to go, nowhere to escape, particularly for the older people.
Definitely.
It was really important for the young ones too, which of course it's tough on the young ones when they couldn't go out anywhere and they couldn't even catch up with their friends. But for the older community, it's been really tough. And yeah, I think about the Melbourne people still all the time now. All the things that people are going through, that until you get the opportunity to talk to other people, which they're not. But for example, I've got a sister that's had a new grandchild, and she hasn't seen that baby, and it's her son. So Alan, her mum's in Ballarat, and that baby is now 4 months old, and there's no support, no friendships, and she hasn't even seen the baby, her mum. So there's so many stories. Yeah,
it's unfathomable. Jules, I might just touch on some of the things that you put in place. Like, obviously you said you started doing takeaway straight away, and you kind of learnt a bit of trial and error, but were there things that you kind of tools that you use? Like, was it just, as you said, like your staff there answering the phone? Like, what things did you have to put in place to shift your business so quickly?
So something that we had never really thought about was, the delivery for a start, but we used an app called Bopple.
Yep.
That took a little bit of setting up, but that was really new for all of us and different for all of us, because technology-wise, we relied on a couple of our younger staff to go, rightio, this is what we're going to do now. There was quite a few examples of that, like thinking outside the square, what are we going to do? And that was good. And it was good for everyone to learn, online ordering, which the young ones do, but, the older staff, they're like, more traditional, probably a little bit. I am a bit of an online shopper, but not for
But I think too, in a town like a Chukamima, where we don't have, your Uber Eats, and, we're not used to kind of ordering food online. So it's not as if it's like we just go, oh, we'll just do it online, and I'm sure a lot of businesses did it differently. There wasn't kind of one sort of, ideal app, but I know that a few did use the Bobble app. And did that work well for you?
Yes, it did. It was good. I think maybe gave us a little bit more exposure where maybe people hadn't even maybe eaten at the Border Inn before.
Right.
So that was quite good. There has been a couple of positive things that have come out of it. Staff-wise, working as a team and all putting our thinking caps on, we probably had more meetings than we've ever had before.
Yeah.
Try and continue that. And the only reason that happens is because life's routine and it's busy and we're always short-staffed and there's not enough time to sit around and think about different things that we can do.
Yep.
And also listening more to your staff. Not that you don't deliberately not listen, but maybe they don't get the opportunity, or you forget to say, has anyone got anything? Just anything. And when you get desperate, you can put anything on the table and give it a thought. But when you're really busy, you're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, but maybe later.
And you just keep doing the same thing. What would you say, Jules, the biggest challenge has been for you, or or are there a list of challenges? Obviously, it's
apart from financial worries, and when I say that, it's probably the uncertainty of not knowing. For us at the start, I would say to 80, we have worked really hard our whole lives. In hospitality tourism, that's what you do. You don't get to do all the things that other people get to do. We've never been away at Easter. We've never been away at Christmas time. You grab a week here or a week there. And everyone was saying it was such a leveler. Oh, isn't this great? COVID's going to level everyone out. And I'm like, no, that is not fair, because I have worked hard my whole life and now I'm level with my daughter. That's not fair. But that was the uncertainty of it, like just not knowing whether we could be closed down for 12 months. And for us, established business, 30 years, maybe that would have been doable, just to shut everything down. But for a lot of people, not even an option. Like that would be just it. Of course, you shut everything down. I suppose your overheads are gone, so you don't have to worry about your electricity. So that was one side of it. That was just anxiety and anxiousness of that you've worked your whole life maybe for nothing. But after that 2 months and, we think, okay, things are going to be okay if we can get through this time. Immediately it was the staff. Like I said, when you've got a small business, you are more personal with your staff. Like in big companies, you don't get to know everyone's issues and problems. But most people that have small businesses are close to their staff. They know their problems and know their worries. So it's really stressful to think, where are these families going to get their money from if they can't go to JobSeeker, they can't go to the government? What do? So they can't fly home to Italy, to the UK, to Sri Lanka, because at the time things were disastrous there. They have no income, a couple of them with children, and there's no money coming from anywhere. That really stressed me out.
Yeah, I bet.
Ones, you know, it was bad enough having to tell people, you know, I'm sorry, you're not going to get the JobKeeper. You don't have a job anymore. Go home and live with mum and dad. You know, that was a little bit stressful, but not. It was more the families that
Yeah.
I'm thinking what is going to happen. And of course, in the back of your mind, you've got this, what about me too? Like, what are
Yeah.
we going to do? So the JobKeeper, the maintaining our staff was probably the main concern for me through the whole
Yep.
thing, apart from, you know, personal issues going on in our own families.
Yeah,
which
of
are,
course.
yeah, like, you know, nieces, nephews out of work, you know, my brothers and sisters worrying about their families, us worrying about my mum and dad, all those things. Yeah, it was a pretty horrid time, but.
And anxiety particularly, you know, and just that worry. But now that we're sort of, we're not through, but we are certainly, things are different now, particularly for, you know, Murray River Council based businesses. Like, things have been a bit more open in New South Wales for a couple of months now. Is there a couple of things that you can kind of pinpoint, Jules, that's really helped you and your business through? Like, if you had to kind of name a couple of things, even if it was just, you know, non kind of logistical things in the business that kind of, yeah, helped you through?
Yeah, so I suppose one of the things I've reflected on is we're members of the Australian Hoteliers Association. It's very
Yep.
expensive to be a member of that association. And I suppose for 30 years now, we've been going, oh, they don't really, you know, we don't really use them. You know, what are they for? Why do we pay all this money? Or you have to be a member. This experience, being a member of association and the guidance that we've received from them, with the COVID safety plans, with all the things that we've had to implement, without that association, it would have been really difficult. And, you know, I would have rung them maybe once a week for the last 6 months. Not sure about laws, rules, regulations, asking them to help us with the border closure situation, complaining a lot about all the things that are unfair. And they've represented us and they've been really good. So maybe the resources that you don't use that you should use more often, but once again, COVID lesson, they're there, use them. No different to a Chukamima Tourist Association, which is another really good example. I've probably never really called the Murray River Council before and asked them anything, or so I've gotten to know a little bit more, or learned that this is what they're for, so use them. Chukamima Tourism have been terrific. Like, at the moment, I think they're really trying to help the New South Wales accommodation, which is in a little bit of trouble at the moment. Because of course we've got no tourists on this side of the river, and it's been 6 months now they've been empty. So that's a little bit of a worry, but Chukamima Tourism have been really helpful with that. C4EM, I did notice early days when we were using Australian Hoteliers Association that C4EM were putting a lot of stuff up on their site for the small businesses that maybe aren't connected to an association. So how do I know what the grants are, what they're entitled to, what they should apply for? I noticed they're really helpful with advice for the JobKeeper and community for a Chukamima. Like, it's important. That's what they're there for, to help our community. So
and whereabouts, Jules, can I just ask whereabouts you were getting this information? Was it mainly sort of email or social media, like all these things that you noticed? Where were you finding that information mostly?
Well, I noticed it on Facebook, but AHA of course send out stuff. And so with mostly social media, emails. But there was quite a few people that I've run into that I've said, you know, did you apply for this grant? Did you apply for that grant? And they hadn't, or they didn't think that they would be eligible for it, so they hadn't applied for it. And I quite a few times stay on the C4EM because they're pretty were over the top of everything. And if they could ask them a question. But so those really small businesses, I think that was good initiative from C4M to keep all that stuff updated.
Yep. And now, as you said, on with a bit of reflection on, from sort of now back to March, number one lesson learned or a couple of lessons learned, Jules? Is there anything that if we had to do it again, God forbid?
Yes, and I think business-wise and personally, because like Alex, my daughter, it was a good thing too, because she is a saver, and it's not that her job was affected by it because she's a school teacher, so she still had income. But for businesses, I think you have to save for that rainy day. I mean, I never would have thought in a million years, and I've said it before over the years, that hospitality tourism, I thought, was one of those industries that was really bulletproof, because everyone wants to go out and everyone wants to go on a holiday. And I seriously thought that we were pretty much bulletproof, especially here in such a great tourist area. So I think we've learnt that no business is bulletproof. You just never know. So you have to have a little bit put away.
Yep.
Same on a personal level. Anyone, you just cannot live from week to week, because you just don't know what's going to happen.
No.
So that's probably one of those things. And the other thing is probably and we've learnt this, support your local community. Because without our local support, so take the tourists away, who are we all left with? And that is our local Chuka community. So it doesn't matter whether it's, whatever cause it's for, charity, sponsorship, or just your local community. Shop local, look after each other. I think that's been, and I'm really happy with the Chuka the way that we've still remained as like one town.
It's been hard.
Yes, but we have, and there's been no, they shouldn't be over here, or they, why are they allowed over here? I think we've all been frustrated for each other with the border closure, the waits on the bridge. I'm frustrated for Echuca businesses. I feel really sorry for them that they're still not operating as they should be, considering there's no COVID. I think that's really frustrating. I'm frustrated with our premiers, both of them, feeling isolated. I think our towns, hopefully, maybe this will put us on the map as that border town that complained a lot. And
that squeaky wheel.
Know where we are now.
And I think too, I just wanted to touch on to that community support. And I imagine, 30 years of the Border Inn supporting community, whether it be sport or fundraising or individuals or families. I'm sure you've felt that come back to you in some way during this time.
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes, and you've heard it over the years, that a lot of people complain about the tourists and how many tourists there are. And I understand that can be really frustrating sometimes. But I do think over this time now, when we've found out that we need the tourists, which is why we have beautiful facilities, a picture theatre, a heated pool, all the things that those tourists bring us, I think maybe there's going to be that nice balance there of understanding that we can still be a local town and enjoy the money that the tourists bring into our community as well.
Yeah, I agree. Well said. Just a final question, Jules, before I let you go. Is there anything that you will sort of retain from this COVID experience to sort of, I suppose, future-proof, or bulletproof? As you said, nothing is bulletproof. It's one thing you've learnt. But is there anything that you will keep in place or that you will reach to, in the future that has helped you through?
I said at the start of the COVID that I would never complain about anything again. I would never complain about my phone dinging because someone can't work. I would never complain about not being able to go away on a busy weekend. I think, and I hope, and everyone can remind me, I think that we're going to be more resilient. as a business moving forward. I think that probably everyone, we won't complain about ever being too busy again. I do think that it has been a nice little reset for everyone. I think noticed out in the park, even out here, a lot of people riding their bikes, a lot more family time.
Yep.
So you have to look at you have to kind of pick out those good things and, you know, take from that and go, well, yeah, I don't know. Does that make sense?
It does, totally. And I think a lot of people would say that, you know, despite the challenges, I think that it has been a bit of a recalibration of sorts. I think whether it be for your business or for your personal life, even schooling, the way our kids have learned, you know, there's been lots of lessons learned. And I think that it sounds very cliche, but it's true. So
a couple of funny things of the people with the customers that come in and the staff, and I think they have a greater appreciation for their teachers now. Someone made a little, they found out that maybe their kids weren't as clever, or there's been funny things happen. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, you know, I really thank you for joining us today and just sort of documenting this time in history, because I know my mum was one through the whole period saying, I hope the kids are keeping a journal and writing things down. And, you know, the teenagers rolling their eyes going, well, we're probably not. But, you know, it's really important to document this time in history, because we are living history, you know, as painful as it has been and still will be for many people. So thank you, Jules, for joining us today and, you know, sharing your small business experience. Thank you to Zoe who joined us earlier as well, and to the Murray River Council for the opportunity to chat with so many inspiring small businesses for the New South Wales Government Small Business Festival. Just remember that if you want to follow more conversations this month, particularly, stay in touch with us on social media, leave some comments and any ideas or feedback, or, you know, if you have similar sort of story to Jules, we'd love to hear that as well. And you can catch all the conversations this month. So thanks again for joining us on Spreading the Good Stuff, and we'll chat to you soon. Bye for now.